I don't know about you, but as a high achieving man, the last thing I want to do is ask for help. Most of the time we ask for help when it's too damn late. It's like being all the way out in the Atlantic Ocean, paddling around all by ourselves, and then hopefully a boat goes by and throws us a life preserver and we jump out. This is called the Valley of Avoidance. We're trying to solve the problem with the skull and crossbones. In today's episode, I'm going to help you build the bridge across the Valley of Avoidance. Gentlemen, welcome to the Inside Man podcast. I'm Gary Kadi, and this show is all about our mission to help high-achieving men achieve unreal success, fulfillment, connection, and what I call chronic joy and zero suffering. In this episode, I'm going to talk about mentorship for men, how to lead and learn, why it's important. I'm going to give you the action steps that you can take to improve your quality of life to achieve chronic joy, success, and freedom. Now, let's start by looking at understanding men's unique challenges. I don't know about you, but as a high achieving man, the last thing I want to do is ask for help. Most of the time we ask for help when it's too damn late. It's like being, all the way out in the Atlantic Ocean, paddling around all by ourselves, and then hopefully a boat goes by and throws us a life preserver and we jump out. I don't know about you too. I let my world go in terms of my weight. I was 44 pounds heavier. I was, didn't have a track to be generational wealthy. My wife was about to throw me out. My son didn't want to hang out with me. My team hated me at work. Why is all that happening? So I want to introduce to you a concept called the Valley of Avoidance. And so if you're here, you've worked your tail off, and you're, dripping wet and you're exhausted and you've done some really great stuff and you've been successful, right? You've achieved some certain success, right? But now you're at a point where it's not sustainable. It's like going to that next mountain up here is almost daunting. It's like, you can't work any harder. There's no more time in the day. Your body's wearing out. You're hungover. Your wife hates you. Your team hates you. It's sort of like what I was dealing with, right? So what do we do as men? We do the beautiful, this is called the Valley of Avoidance. And in this valley, we don't figure out how to talk to our wife until maybe, like my wife did, was ready to go to the lawyer and get my walking papers. Or, my son, I'm just like hard on him and just going alpha on him like I do at people at work. And then both groups hate me. And my son is beat down, doesn't want to hang out with his dad, right? And meanwhile, he's dealing with his own, stuff. Let's call it, the body. You're just mowing down, unconsciously eating, unaware of how you're fueling your body. And then all of a sudden, 30, you can burn, 40, you're not burning, 50, forget. And then you're 60 and it's like, what the heck do I do? I'm eating well and I'm still not able to lose weight. And I'm snoring, I'm throwing on a CPAP. You can see the cascade of BS because what we're doing is we're hoping it goes away. We're stuffing it down. And then what's happening? Oh, a little porn. Oh, a little gambling. Oh, we're trying to solve the problem with the skull and crossbones. And then we know this is not going to work. So what is there to do? In today's episode, I'm going to help you build the bridge across the Valley of Avoidance, bring things closer to you so you can walk across that board and go up here. And now you're a champion over here, the way you want your life to work. So this is the Valley of Avoidance. We're going to bust out of this Valley of Avoidance. And what are we going to do? We're going to now look at your factory settings. My best friend, Michael Fishman, Consumer Health Summit, unbelievable. If you want to be in the forefront of health and wellness, he's connected to all the latest and greatest of consumer health stuff. Michael Fishman talks about we have factory settings as a man. We just get them plugged in at birth. And then we're just built to do things where there's control. We're doers. We stuff our emotions down. We can get shit done, GSD, I call it. And we can give, we're givers, but we're not good receivers. We're not good receivers. And I wrote a book called, let me see if I even have it here. Oh, I do. I have my book right in front and it's propped up on my camera because I had to switch my camera. This is called Raise Your Healthy Deserve Level. It's my second book. And what I learned in my third year of sobriety is you don't get what you deserve. You get what you think you deserve, nothing more, nothing less. So what happens is if inside I'm unworthy and undeserving, I'm built on shame and guilt. And I feel like I can't receive because like I'm telling myself I'm a bad person. What ends up happening is when somebody's ready to give us something, we refute it. Even an acknowledgement, we say, we want to acknowledge. You can't, no, that was nothing. You don't say thank you when someone acknowledges you. That means that you can't receive. Receiving acknowledgement is directly proportionate to your ability to receive money, receive love, receive things. We men haven't learned how to receive. And now there's 3 layers here as we understand the man. There's being, doing, and having. Being, doing, and having. So being is how you show up for yourself and others. I was showing up hungover, angry, and I was coming out sideways. When something didn't go my way, I was suffering and I was miserable. And I didn't know I was so angry. And what was underneath my anger? Sadness. I was sad about things and I never talked about them. And then it becomes anger. Then it becomes sideways when I'm exhausted, I'm hungover, I'm not getting what I want in life, I'm not getting acknowledged, not getting appreciated, and then I went sideways. So as Michael Fishman talks about, these are the factory settings. So this distinction of receiving is a vulnerability. And we high achieving men, we're not open to, being vulnerable. That is like, if anything gets close to vulnerable, we're knocking that thing down. And we don't even realize we're doing this. It's just like we walk through our day in the in the factory setting. So we want to distinguish being, that's how you show up for yourself and others, and how maybe you get a reaction and what you do with the reaction. Do you respond or do you react? A reaction is coming from pent up twistedness that's underneath. And if you could relate to this, my wife used to say, Gary, you go from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds of being hot. I go, honey, I idle at 90. That's why I call the company Life on All Cylinders, because I'm idling way too high. So how do we take the temperature down, release some of the pressure? That's what we're going to talk about today. And so doing, we're good doers. Doers it's easy for us high achieving men to get stuff done. I don't know about you, but I'm jacked on a to-do list. I'm jacked about putting a strategy in and getting it fulfilled. Like that feels good because it's a control, it's a validator. It kind of validates who we are. And then it usually produces great results. And that is even like the bigger adrenaline rush. So then we get caught in that dopamine, adrenaline driver. And what ends up happening is there's the 3 A's when we stuff stuff down in the valley of avoidance, the 3 A's I call it. We get jacked on adrenaline. So I want to talk about adrenaline right now. I'm 3 months out today from recovering from a serious mountain biking accident where I was in the middle of the desert, crashed, and I was woken up by my Apple Watch. They sent a drone to find me, then motorcycles and EMTs with backpacks on. They carried me out 2 miles and I had a broken femur, a broken replaced hip. So I'm the only guy that has 3 replaced hips. So I had a hip replacement of a hip replacement and then broken clavicle. So I'm not really feeling sexy. So, I feel a little beat up, but it's because I was driven by adrenaline. And that's okay. Like we can get juiced up and, but there's, what is the risk and what are the consequences of this adrenaline that we seek? The next is adultery. And thank God, I haven't done that. I'm happily married for 21 years. We're together 24. Listen, we're talking about the ability to, get past where we get stuck. And what we're talking about now is like adrenaline, adultery, and addiction. So we don't realize we're addicted, in the valley of avoidance. We're trying to numb ourselves out. So those 3 things really start popping up and we can't control them because we're just trying to heal. Healing comes from feeling. I'm going to say that again. Healing comes from feeling. We men don't want to feel because we're taught not to. We're taught to rub dirt in it and get over it. Don't cry, right? Stop crying. Well, I'll give you something to cry for. You want something to cry for? My dad would take the belt out and whack the snot out of me, right? We'll talk about that in future podcasts too. The octagon with the son and a father, which is like awesome stuff to learn. And it also, just give you a little foreshadowing, it also helps you in the day-to-day relationships that you have with men, just friends and colleagues and business people. Really powerful transformation that happens when you get a new relationship to your pops, even though he might be past. So we'll definitely have that episode coming up. I like to foreshadow a little bit because there's so much here that we can talk about, and we will. That's why I love this podcast. You know, I am you. I was you. The only reason why I can speak about this, and it's the difference between mentor and coach. We're going to talk about that today on today's episode. A mentor has lived it and figured out a way to overcome it. A coach may not have had the experience, but they're guiding you to high performance. It's a very different experience when someone can speak inside. One's not better or worse. It's just, what do you want to experience? I like the power of example. I like somebody who I identify with their persona. They're fun. You know, he's wearing a Yankee jersey. It's baseball season. That's why I want my loves to come out in this podcast. You know, my first career, I was more like buttoned up and stuff. This is who I am. You're getting all of me. And I'm just raw. And the reason why I'm raw is because I found the more vulnerable and raw that I can be, the more people I connect with. And that's what people really want. See, I was stuffing all this stuff down to look good because inside I hated myself. And if you're hating yourself out there, that's part of the factory settings that Michael Fishman talks about. We just beat ourselves up. And then the way we treat ourselves is the way we treat others around us, right? I was hard on myself. I'm hard on my employees, hard on my son, like banging it out and grinding it out. And it's like, it's not necessary, especially when it comes to relating to Judah. She doesn't want to be spoken to like the way I speak to myself. You know, it doesn't work. So, you know, societal expectations often pressure us to become self-reliant. Leading us to isolation. I do want to highlight this. This is really important. My friend Ben Hardy is a great author, psychologist. Love his work. If you haven't checked him out, Ben Hardy is amazing. And Willpower Doesn't Work is the book where I really connected with him, called him up, and we became friends over the years. And in there, his dad was an addict. And when I read this, I was like, done. He said, connection is the opposite of addiction. And I wasn't connected to myself. I wasn't connected to my son. I wasn't connected to my wife. I wasn't connected to my business. I was doing and I was in those things, but I wasn't in there. There's a difference between being like in it and willing to like be open, be vulnerable, be in there. So connection is the opposite of addiction. And we're talking about connecting to ourselves, our families, our money, our purpose, our things, right? So how do we get there? Well, I like mentorship. So as you may know, I'm coming up on 17 years of sobriety this year. Really, it's probably one of the biggest things that I've learned over the years and biggest gifts. It was the biggest heartache and the biggest gift at the time. There'll be another one coming when you exit your business, and we'll talk about that in the future as well. The identity that we have as men in our business, that's a bigger addiction that I found than alcoholism. But you know, I went through alcoholism and I stayed sober continuously for 16 years. And how did I do that? I couldn't stop drinking for an hour or thinking about drinking or being hungover or any of that stuff. And so how the program that I'm in works is you basically get the 12 tools to apply, and you work with that. And then what you do is you mentor other men that have the same problem as you. And it is a transformative tool that addresses the challenges of providing support, accountability, and a pathway to really personal growth. And I emphasize mentorship. The reason why I love mentorship, it creates a safe space. See, you're listening to this podcast in a safe space. I'm being fully transparent with you. I'm being authentic, vulnerable, giving you everything I got because I want you to get it. And all the things that you're avoiding or holding on to are the exact things that are going to give you your freedom. But, somebody had to give me permission to go out on a limb and do it. I spoke on stages in almost every state around the world. And when I was active alcoholic, I masked up, I put the armor on, and I tried to show you how smart I was. The minute I got sober, I told the truth about my alcoholism, my workaholism, my son's autism, and my results went through the roof because people connect with what is real about people, not what, because I didn't know this, but people were looking at me like, who the heck does this guy think he is? Like, he's better than everybody else. And because we all have our stuff. And so the booby prizes, what I thought people wanted to hear from me, like I had it all handled, was not the case. So really gaining insights, developing holistically, learning through the power of example. So I mentor business owners. That's number one, and that's my business. I mentor young men who are in college looking to create a career. That's probably one of my favorite things because if I didn't have the opportunity to step into entrepreneurship, I would have been a gangster in jail somewhere. There's no doubt from where I came from. I mean, that's the makeup of my family, or in the mafia somewhere. Somewhere I would have been gangstered somewhere, right? And so I found this place called entrepreneurship that was really a gift, and I love bringing that to young men. And then I coach people that want to break addictions. And when I say coach, I mentor them, but I do take a coaching approach. So I want to define the role of a mentor. So what I'm recommending is, if you want to have a big, healthy, fulfilled life, turning any space that you have right now into mentorship. So maybe you're a business owner. So maybe instead of looking at it like you have to make payroll and you have to, grind, maybe you can now relate to yourself as a mentor to your team and start mentoring them. And when I did this, the team that hated me fell in love with me because I was adding value and I was showing them what they needed to do rather than telling them they should do this and should do that and should do that. And when you should on people, they feel like shit, right? It's what happens. So we don't want to should on people. When you start shoulding on people, they feel guilty and they feel like they should have known. And then you leave people disempowered. I left people disempowered, okay? So I want to distinguish mentorship. Mentor is someone who's navigated similar paths and can offer guidance, support, and wisdom because they've been there. It's different than a coach. A coach generally doesn't need to have direct experience, right, of their coachee's role. A mentor is more experienced and qualified than the mentee and passes along that knowledge, right? So I have gray hair. I'm sure a lot of you don't have gray hair listening, and you're wanting the wisdom from somebody that's walked through it. Here's an interesting thing. When I started this podcast, I've done my research. 72% of the people that are guiding men are women. I found that really interesting. There's not many guys coaching guys and mentoring guys. So that really catapulted me to take this inside man position and really focus in on men. Because I've also coached women, but I really have much more fulfillment and joy seeing men. And I think there's a big transformation that's happening with the feminist movement over the last few decades, women in the workplace, way more. I was in the dental field, 50% of dentists are now women. So I had women leaders. I had to deal with them. Very different. They just take direction and go with it. Men, we have to break through the iron walls to get to surrender, because we think surrendering means losing or we suck. The key thing here is when you surrender to receiving, it's a strength. This damn pandemic was a pain in the ass, but it wasn't done to us. I think it was done for us because I think there needed to be a movement, especially with men, to teach us how to receive. Like, if you're a business owner and they go, oh, get to do the PPP and, this, and like, you got to fill this paperwork out. We needed help to do that. And we needed help to do a lot of things to get through things back in those days, 5 years ago. And so, you just want to asking for help is a strength. It's not a weakness. Just practice it. We're going to talk about action items. I would just practice asking for help where you would never ask for help. That's going to be your homework from this podcast. It's going to be a great one. And just practice it and see how it feels. And then you'll be able to journal after it. It's a really good exercise to do that. So I want to talk about real life successful mentor-mentee relationships. And the first one I want to talk about is pretty well known, is the Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg relationship. Jobs provided Zuckerberg with great strategic advice and influenced Facebook's growth. I mean, because that was like game changing. And Jobs, he taught Zuckerberg how to build a business with a future. And the future was more on how are you going to transform the world? It wasn't like the product. He didn't have his focus on the product. It focused on how does the product transform the world? And then how do you monetize it? How do you manage growth? Because Jobs did it before him with Apple. And then he really helped Zuckerberg shape Facebook into a global company. Like, how do you take this global? Because that's a completely different, element. It's one thing to do it in the States, but beyond that, and then really navigate the complexity of tech startups, because that was such a big thing back in the day when there was that growth spurt with tech startups. So, I do remember in Zuckerberg's farewell to Jobs, he talked about in the Facebook post, "Thanks for showing me the thing that you build could change the world." So he gave him his context to look through. Without that mentor-mentee ability, do you think Zuckerberg inherently would just, navigate these waters? You go to somebody that's done it already. And why invent mediocrity when you can copy excellence? And so really that's what this podcast is all about, and really following the methods that have already been proven. The second one I want to identify today is the one with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. They met at a summit, a CEO summit in Microsoft headquarters, and they really hit it off and they began a friendship. And what Gates learned from Warren Buffett was how to manage his time and prioritize people. He said people were the key to the whole thing. It was really like who, not how. So if you found out who, and this is a Ben Hardy book, Who, Not How, who can help you rather than how to do it yourself. Like we tend to be do-it-yourselfers as men, right? But you can go a lot faster when you get the how in there. And then he learned what really friendship is all about, because, Gates wasn't a guy to be friends. He was like more of an introvert and didn't really have that. He had a couple of, close friends, as we know. But other than that, it was like Warren Buffett taught Bill Gates about the power of not just financial capital and invention capital, but relationship capital. And he really went to work on that. And they collaborated on political and philanthropic, as we know. Gates is a real big philanthropy, and I'm sure it had a lot of elements of like how to manage his billions and the value of donating money, and so you can mitigate taxes. I'm sure that was all in there. And then of course Bill was on Berkshire Hathaway's board for 20 years, and then Buffett was on Bill and Melinda Gates as well. So how they influenced each other, I think, when I read about it, Gates thought of Warren Buffett as a father figure because, and this is what I was talking to you about earlier, sometimes our biological fathers they're doing the best they can with what they were given. They can't really give like the visionaries like we are as entrepreneurs a power of example. So maybe you'll use me, or maybe you'll use somebody that you can really identify with and use that as a father figure. I have a dear woman that took me under her wing. My mom did the best she could, but she suffered from mental illness, cognitive illness. She was paranoid, schizophrenic. She was such a loving soul. God rest her peace. She passed away on April 2nd, 2 weeks into the pandemic in a nursing home in New Jersey. So I said goodbye to her on FaceTime. Just horrible ending. That just brought me right back to that. And I'll tell you, I'm moved by this, and I get moved. I cry now because I'm okay to cry, because before I didn't feel like it was okay for me to cry. And I'm sad that my mom's not around, and how I say goodbye to her, not cool, not my ideal, not my ideal, but I love her. And, it's interesting. This podcast is dedicated to her because of her mental illness and my family's mental illness and mine. I was easily going down that road with the alcoholism because all I was doing was numbing my mental pain. And Oh, excuse me. Yeah. Yeah. So like getting back to mentorship, let's get back to what we're here to do. But like, it's just okay to feel your feelings. And that's how we heal. Feelings are healings. And that's what I learned. And, I'm going to be crying on this damn podcast. I'm just telling you right now, especially, ever since I've stared down death. Oh my God. It's like I have 100% gratitude and 0% expectations, where I used to have 100% expectations and zero gratitude. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't work for somebody that doesn't want to suffer and somebody that wants to have joy. So, just getting back to Gates and Buffett and Jobs and Zuckerberg, those are relationships that are mentee-mentor that catapulted them forward faster. And that's the key thing. We want the HOV lane for you. We don't want you to have to go figure this out like I did. It took me 20 years and, tons of dough and tons of time. That's why I created this podcast, because I want it really simple, really easy, easily accessible to get you there. So what is there to do? Become a mentor. Explain how mentoring can, when you get to work with somebody, explain that you want to be their mentor, or ask them, can I be your mentor? And it's not like you have to add time to this. I mean, you can go, mentor someone at work, but create that mentor-mentee relationship. And it provides you with a sense of purpose and contributes to your personal growth. There's a lot of fulfillment that comes from this. And I spent my last 20 years doing this, and it really keeps me alive. It really, really keeps me alive. And it reminds me, what happens is when you become a mentor, the teacher is also the student. You actually learn more when you're mentoring somebody because of a few reasons. One is you get to be reminded of what it was like to be where you were. Because, if you've ever quit smoking, quit drinking, lost weight, you don't remember what it's like to be fat. You don't remember what it's like to smoke. You don't remember what it's like to be drunk. You get rerouted in what that's like when somebody's giving you their painful experience of that. So, and it helps me not go back to drinking, because I'm like, I don't want to deal with that crap again, right? It's not there. You have to also understand it to teach it. So what I've learned about turning myself into an ongoing mentor for people, and you got to be careful here. I want to give you a little pitfall. You have to ask permission. Asking permission to mentor somebody. I have people that pay me to do that. So they're giving me permission and they're giving me their money to do it, right? And that's cool. I do a lot pro bono. I do a lot for free. A lot of moms and wives send their guys to me. And I'll tell you, I'm like, I started noticing they're coming to me and saying, hey, can you help? And so I'm just a street kid from Jersey that, learned some stuff and I'm living it out. And they go, can you just share that with people? Because there is one thing about an avoidance to becoming a mentor. I want to share that with you too. I was unwilling to be a mentor in the program that I'm in to help alcoholics or addicts get off their addiction, because I felt like I wasn't an expert in that area. You don't have to be an expert in all areas. You could just share your experience and what you did to live the life you're living. That's what I'm doing with you right now. I'm not an expert in every single of these, different areas that I'm going to be talking about, but I have my experience about it, and I have where I was, what happened, and then what I put in place to have it turn out. So I plug into the experts, the best in the world of mentors, and you're going to meet them all over the life of the podcast. And they're experts. They go deep, right? They go deep. And that's where I defer to them and bring them on board. So the teacher is the student in this case when you become a mentor. And also, just the pitfall, make sure you have permission to coach somebody or mentor somebody. I use the word mentor and coach interchangeably, but mentorship means you've been through that and you could offer advice, but not everybody's willing to receive it. So you have to make sure. And I used to make that, I failed a lot because I would just offer advice and people would be pissed off. Excuse me, how to lose weight and shit. It was you're confronting the crap out of me. I'm out of here. I could see him go away. The thing I love about it is it really fosters self-reflection. It really enhances leadership skills. So I'm talking to you about leading and learning in this episode. And the solution is very different. See, I'm going to give you some common things to do, But in this case, imagine developing your leadership and learning through being a mentor to someone else. There's this philosophy where you can't give away something you don't have for yourself. And I believe we all have everything already innately. What's happened is it's been covered up, and we just need to unleash that part of us. So when I'm working with you in these podcasts and giving you these trainings, I'm not trying to give you more to do. What I'm doing is taking something off so what's already there can show up. Very different type of an approach, because you don't need more stuff to do. Your inbox is full. You don't need more fires to put out. What you need is someone to help you take away the things that are not working, because you're spending boatloads of time with things that are no longer working, and you just keep doing them because you don't know what else to do. I want to interrupt all that. And so learning and leading comes from being a mentor. So here's the steps in becoming a mentor. First is self-assessment. I want to encourage you to reflect on your experiences and identify areas that you can offer guidance. So and you might be, I know you're going to be thinking like, I don't know what to mentor on. Look, I'm an alcoholic. I can mentor on alcoholism. I'm a dad. I can mentor on that because I have a lot of failures. And by the way, sharing failures is a contribution. So I'm a husband, and I've been married straight through for 21 years. Got my ass kicked, fight like dogs. And we love the crap out of each other, and we are inseparable. We are two souls as one, right? But we're interdependent, and we go to work on it. You can't just have a successful anything if you don't go to work on it, right? And giving it away is actually how you get more of what you want. So self-assessment. And then seek opportunities like, life on all cylinders. By the way, I haven't even talked about this yet. That's my son right there, Rome. That's us at last year's World Series, Yankees, Dodgers, game 1, and we were on national TV. It was crazy. We were like the only Yankee fans in the seats right behind the dugout. So we got on TV all the time. And my son, I didn't want to spend the money, right? I'm like, I'll set up a little higher. Like, what I've learned is quality over quantity. I'd rather go to less games and we sat next to Scott Boras. We sat next to Dave Winfield. We were on camera all the time. We were like in Dodger land, and we were the only Yankee fans. It was awesome. Just heaven. My son, see, creating memories is key. And that comes from mentoring. And that opened up doors. That meant the mentoring that I've been doing. We got connected to some of the sportscasters in Dodger land. We got these seats. And it was just like an experience. We actually went behind the scenes. My son wants to be a broadcaster. And so he met a couple of the Dodgers broadcasters. It was phenomenal. So it all came from mentoring and adding value to people. And then, so step number 1 is self-assessment, find where you want to go. Step number 2 is seek opportunities to become a mentor. And it could be right in front of your nose, but you have to ask permission and set up the relationship. And the last thing is really commit to continuous learning. You can be a mentor. We're going to have peer-to-peer mentoring inside of our community. So you're going to be able to find somebody inside of our Life on All Cylinders community where they've been through divorce and they walk through successfully versus duking it out, how to soften it and move through it, and maybe not have an ex-wife, but have a former wife and have a partnership there. We have men who've been through, staring down bankruptcy and turning that around. And, so there's all kinds of people that have been there before you. And we never get there because we don't share as men. This community is a safe space where you get to really learn about this man who's done this. And I am going to be the conduit and connector. If you have an issue, somebody else has done it before you, and we're going to pair you up with that. So I want to close this session out. Here's the call to action. Seek mentor opportunities. 1, mentoring opportunity, and become a mentor in the next week. Do that. Step into it, and you'll see the dual benefits of learning and leading. And then become a member of Life on All Cylinders. Join our community. Participate. Get some powers of example around you. I want to say that it's really important to grow personally and professionally. And the way you do it is by giving away generously. It's the opposite. Most of the time we want to take, like, how can I be a better leader? Oh, I go to this course. No, you're receiving that way. When you're giving, all of a sudden there's opportunities that absolutely open up a world that would never have existed if you didn't step into leading and learning through mentorship. So I'll see you when I see you. Have a great one. And I'll see you on the next episode.